You're listening to season 15 of the Virtual
No,
Tailgate, a media bullcrap production covering college football in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I'm Andrew.
I'm David.
I'm unprepared.
And I'm his brother.
Be sure to join the tailgate on Facebook at Virtual Tailgate or email us at virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com. He's really unprepared, guys.
Anyway, we have the section called Player of the Week here, brought to you by the Tacoba Work Boots. Walking taller, feeling taller players of the week here on the Virtual Tailgate. Andrew, why don't you kick us off?
All right. Tommy Castellanos said an incendiary thing back in the middle of the summer that Nick Saban wasn't going to be there to save Alabama. Everybody thought that he was absolutely full of crap 2 months ago. And after putting up only 152 yards in the air, adding 78 on the ground with a touchdown, Castellanos did indeed lead FSU to an upset victory over number 8 Alabama in a game that might have gotten a little close in the early fourth quarter, but was really never in doubt in the entirety of the second half. So props to you, Mr. Castellanos, for getting one of the first virtual tailgate game balls this season.
Did you guys see that that's going to become a T-shirt now? Like his quote about Saban. That's my Christmas gift to you guys. You're all getting Tommy Castellanos T-shirts. And
Man, that's some gift of the Magi stuff right there because the one's already on order for you.
Oh, guys, Christmas season's so close. It's right around the corner. Yay! Castellanos is going to get a lot of spicy meatballs with that NIL money for that T-shirt. Anyway, Haynes King, the quarterback, Georgia Tech, the senior, 140 yards in the air was enough, although it wasn't pretty, was enough to open up the ground game against Colorado, where he gashed them with 19 carries for 156 yards and 3 touchdowns. The first quarterback to do both the 140 yards passing and 140 yards plus rushing since 2019 when Jalen Hurts did it at Oklahoma. And it was the first to do it in the season opener, to clarify on that. I know other players have done it, but season opener first since Jalen Hurts 2019. Well done, Haynes. Congratulations. You know, keep it up.
I was reading along with that, and I'm not sure I totally understand what happened, other than that Haynes King had a good game.
Yes,
and
that's the important part.
This is what happens when you do it live, David. Okay, it's okay.
Well, when I do it live, I go with the homer pick. So I've got Cam Ross, UVA wide receiver. He ended up with 7 catches for 124 yards in the Cavaliers' victory over the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina. Also brought a kickoff return, 100 yards to the house, ended with 224 yards all-purpose, which led the conference in just a monster game for Mr. Ross and the Who's.
All right, and for my game ball pick this week, you might remember last week there was a prophetic pick from the West Coast about a certain California Bears game that was coming up, and none other than it. I'll bring it up this week because who knows when the next time I'll get to bring up something from regarding Cal, but the Jared's new favorite player in the ACC, I believe, and Andrew might have to help me out here. Jaron Kiawe Sega Pulutele? Did I get it? Was it?
It's
Was
pretty
I,
good.
Was I close? Was I close?
It's Sega Dreamcast.
Okay. All right. That's why. We don't let Jared try to pronounce stuff. Anyways, amazing game from him. Cal certainly got the season started off on the right foot. 1-0 on the season. Beat the Beavers of Oregon State, and he was really contributed to that performance. 20 of 30, 234 yards, and 3 TDs through the air. So props to JKS there. We're gonna JKS it after that extremely long pronunciation that I had to go through.
All right, well, we're gonna move on to the power rankings brought to you by these deep thoughts from the virtual tailgate. As I sit here and contemplate after watching last night's North Carolina debacle at Chapel Hill, I wonder if Bill Belichick went to sleep by counting sheep or counting the money he stole from UNC. This is your deep thought from the virtual tailgate. All right, now it's back to the top 5 power rankings here. Number 1, we have Miami. The Hurricanes jump up 4 spots after their big win over Notre Dame. The U is back, supposedly. Everyone is doing a bunch of fun nose and needle. You know what? You know.
You're assuming that they ever stop doing that, Jared.
Who am I kidding? Yeah, good point. Good point, brother. Number 2, speaking of a place that supposedly likes their nose candy, SMU. They stay at number 2. Nice win, I guess. Good for you. Number 3, Georgia Tech. Hey, those Yellow Jackets, they're not to be messed with right now. Big win against Colorado. We'll see how the season progresses for them. Number 4, Clemson, dropping 3 spots after their tough loss against the who did they play again?
LSU
LSU
Tigers.
Tigers.
Here you go. Here you go.
The
But there ain't one thing in my life that I've ever failed at, Tyler.
Thanks, Dabo. Thanks for that motivational speech. I really needed a kick in the pants. Number 5, jumping up 5 spots from last week's power rankings. The Seminoles, after their huge win, supposedly against Alabama. Uh, it-
It was definitely against Alabama.
well, it was, but
Not a
supposedly
rumor, not a conspiracy.
it's supposedly a good Alabama team. That's the concern. We don't really know if this team is, a top 25 team right now. And
Isn't that gonna say?
yeah, I mean, it's like you do these preseason rankings, they don't mean anyway. Bottom 3. Speaking of teams that don't really meet right now in the ACC, and we mean that with all due respect, and I mean with all due respect.
Do you?
Not really.
Okay.
First of all, the 15 and 16 teams. Listen, we're glad you're part of the conference. We really are. We love to have you here, but man, oh boy, Cal, Stanford, 15, 16. They just swapped spots essentially in the power rankings at the bottom dwellers. And speaking of bottom dwellers, 17 Wake Forest. How in the hell was my upset pick of Garner of Kennesaw State almost pulling through at the end? 10-9. That's awful. Just
That's
awful, awful.
He clambered up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise. Someone defecated.
Boy, that audio file defecated too all over the place. All right. Back to you,
Well,
David.
we had someone last week. Of course, we made our picks. Even though we only talk about a few of the games on each week's episode, we actually make picks in all of the games. And last week we had one member of the virtual tailgate who defecated on his picks. Um,
Next
now,
question.
but of
I
course,
retired
we
from
did.
gambling. Next
I
question.
wonder, Andrew, does anyone can anyone give us an update on where we stand on the season before we jump into
yeah, yeah. So,
They're just
at the
numbers. They're
at
fake.
the top at the top of the line right there, for week 1, you've got, well, me, who raked in $1,605 and some change. Next up, we've got Jeff, who was very respectable with his $1,229 and some change. David comes in third, with almost half of that at 600 and roughly $45. And then bringing up the rear, we've got Jared at minus 16363. Ah, buddy, was bad.
honestly, it's hard to even understand, Jared, how you perform so poorly.
No, it's not, because if we go to the preseason picks, Jeff and David both had a whopping $41. Jared comes in next at negative 241, and I pulled up the rear with negative 296. I don't actually know how that differential of nearly $2,000 is possible.
Hey guys,
At the end of the season, Andrew will be a billionaire.
this is black magic. It's just budging the numbers here, folks. Moving allocation of assets to one bucket to the other. This man is a spreadsheet of lies. He's a phony. He's a fraud. And you two bozos are, conspirators with him at
Jared,
this point.
All
You
right,
all are
David.
fake numbers.
Speaking
I was
of
gonna say,
phonies and frauds,
he's
the
trying
Hokies
he's
are
trying to
playing
talk you out
host
of
to
talking.
the Commodores of Vanderbilt. Virginia
Oh,
Tech had what was a tough loss on Sunday afternoon in the Beamer Bowl. Shane got the best of his former school. Big win for the Gamecocks over the Hokies. This is Jared, our proud Hokie alumni, has told us that this is a must-win game for Virginia Tech, and it looks like most of us see the Hokies covering a 3-point spread. Jared does not. Tell us what's going to go wrong in week 2 for Brent Pry's team.
Did you watch the offense? We don't know they can score a touchdown right now. Seriously, this offense is lacking any sort of cohesion of being somewhat of a threat inside the red zone. Yes, their kicker seems to be fine, but every time Drones got even a sniff of making a good throw, the receiver would drop it. And when Drones made a bad throw, the receivers had no chance at it anyway. Balls were at the feet of the receivers, overthrown, intercepted, fumbled. Defensive side, yes, I understand the defense did an okay job against South Carolina. Saw missed tackles, poor special teams play on the punt that allowed South Carolina to return a touchdown. Just an overall team that at this point that they did all this team building exercises, only get their ass whooped by 15 points, and it should have been a lot more against South Carolina. Now, yes, is Vanderbilt as good as the Gamecocks? Probably not. Not as talented. But this is essentially the same team that beat them last year and boat raced them out of Nashville in the season opener. I don't think it'll be a boat race, but I just don't see enough on the offensive side right now, especially in the first game, of just being convinced that this team can be able to do anything right. They have to just show it at this point. I don't think it'll be a high scoring game, but I think it's gonna be enough to where the Hokies just don't make enough plays on offense, and, Vanderbilt does with their quarterback, and I just think the Commodores, sorry, not Foles, the Commodores pull this one out and make their prize season off to a horrific start of 0-2 out of conference play, and just at that point, you're really gonna have to really convince the team you have even a chance of having a somewhat successful season. I know it's not ACC play, but these 2 games were essentially we were looking at winnable games, and as much as they laid an egg in the 4th quarter against the Gamecocks, they gotta really come out here and take care of business, and I think take care of it immediately, and I just don't believe that this team can.
Hey, Jared, what has to happen for Kyron Drones to get benched?
If you're re boy, I say if he can get saved if the stat line shows he's throwing incompletions, but it's clearly drops, and he had quite a few of those this past Sunday. Like, there were throws that were right in the receiver's hands, and they were dropped, and that's frustrating as hell, and I get that for Drones, but there were also some passes you just kinda look at and go, "What are we doing?" And I think that falls back on the offensive coordinator. I think you need to understand the limitations of your quarterback and know that he needs to be essentially a one read, run first, and then go from there. Drones does have the talent, I think, to get the job done, but he sure as hell needs to have a coach to understand his skill limit at the same time.
All
I'm
right.
just wondering here is we need to see if we need to check Jared for some dementia or something because I watched that same football game with him and he sure made it sound like it was like a grade A ass whipping and the wheels certainly fell off in the 4th quarter in that game. But that was a game that save for the punt return touchdown and a couple of plays in the 4th quarter. I mean, Jared's over here pissing all over Kyron Drones. I saw that man make some throws that were right in the receiver's hands. I mean,
I clarified that. They were drops.
there were dimes dropped in between 2 DBs right in the receiver's hands. So you can say like that are the receivers gonna drop that from now on? Like, I don't know if that's gonna be a habitual issue, but the throws were not for the most part on Drones in this game. He made some NFL level throws in that game, and that defense held up for 3 quarters of the game against a team that came in ranked 13th in the country. I mean, Vanderbilt is far from a 13th ranked team in the country. Certainly, is not the same talent level as Shane Beamer and that Gamecock team. I believe a few tweaks, and if they come to play like they did in that game against South Carolina, Virginia Tech has all the ability and skills in the world to beat this Vanderbilt team, and it starts with Drones at quarterback.
That's the most passionate defense I've ever heard of a guy who just went 15 of 35 with 2 interceptions. But it does answer my next question, which was gonna be to ask the rest of us, why Jared is wrong. It sounds like Jeff's argument is that, the Hokies are gonna get a lot better production at the quarterback position. Andrew, why do you have the Hokies, covering the spread and winning this one?
Because, like, Vanderbilt's always the worst team in the SEC, and the SEC looks so much more eminently beatable this season, than they have in years past that, it's like I cannot believe that a Virginia Tech team that went toe to toe with South Carolina for roughly 3 quarters is actually going to have a problem with Vanderbilt. No matter what like ultimately happened there at the end of the game.
You know what, guys? I don't do this lightly, and I don't do it very often, but given the arguments I've heard, Jeff's argument that the quarterback who was terrible is actually great, and Andrew's argument, I don't even know how to characterize. I'm actually changing my pick. I'm going over to join.
Well, feel free to be wrong, okay?
I'm gonna go. I think Jared's right.
Feel free to join the person who ended up $600 in the red last week in his
Fake
picks.
numbers, fake news.
If that's the hill you want to die on, David, have at it.
Well, David, we have to go sometime, brother. I don't know what to tell you.
When I watched as I watched Florida State winning last week, I kept thinking, "Oh, I should have put the money on them." And then they would play that damn Chop song again, and I was like, "No, I could never lay real money on Florida State." All right, so David's lost trying to make the update.
What's that?
I said David's lost trying to make his update now.
Well, I'm now having second thoughts because Jeff does bring up a good point that Jared doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. Now I'm all turned around. I don't know what to do.
He's just gonna not make a pick in protest.
I mean,
all right,
I should have done that.
You're taking Vanderbilt on the 3-point spread, but Tech to still win now, aren't you?
No, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going back to my original pick of the Hokies -3 because this is a situation where I can't lose. Heaven forbid I jinx them. I'd hate that and hate to see the Hokies struggle in this one. And if they pull it out, I get a little extra money. So it's all good. I'm going back to the Hokies -3. Are we ready to move on?
Go for it.
All right, let's go to a real ACC matchup here. Got the Baylor Bears traveling into the greater Dallas area.
Nothing says ACC football like
a battle of Texas.
All right, now this is an interesting game. 3.5-point spread in favor of the home team SMU. That's basically a pick 'em there. We were talking a little bit before the show about the fact that this is really a kind of a prove it game for both of these teams to see where they are, what they've got. So it's interesting that it looks like all of us are kind of making the ACC homer pick of taking SMU with the spread. Anybody feeling especially good about this or have any insight to share?
Not anymore. I feel terrible. We're all in agreement. That means it's going to be Baylor.
I will say this one. This game, the more I look at it, this is not one. I guess we have to talk about it because it's close, but this is not one that I feel great about either way picking here. I mean, this is a Baylor team that lost to an Auburn team that has struggled for several years, but in that loss, Sawyer Robertson, their quarterback, also put up 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, is that necessarily going to happen against SMU? I don't know, but SMU's defense gave up quite a chunk of yards last week through the air. Some of that might have been in garbage time, but there's something that leaves me feeling a little uneasy that if they're doing that against an Auburn team that's suspect, for sure, but if they have the ability to do that on offense, this could turn into a shootout, and I'm not sure that I'm sold on that SMU defense given the yards they put up last week. So that's where I'm at. I don't feel great about this game. I've got SMU probably part of the homer pick, probably part of the being ranked versus unranked pick, but I do not feel great about this game.
I mean, SMU's still sort of sitting in that space of until they don't stop, until they don't show up in a game, I'm still gonna kind of believe in them. They won everything except for their their CFP game, the ACC championship, and that weird game against BYU last year. Maybe this could be another one of those like games like the weird BYU game against last year, but they still got Jennings at quarterback. I I have a hard time believing that Rhett Lashley's team is going to be worse this year than last year, given all of the hype. Getting to come into a new conference and do what they did last year, like that brings more people to you. That helps you build a better team. And so like I said, until they show me that they're going to lose to middling teams or not basically their losses last year were mostly to like good teams. I'm going to keep picking them, so that's why I'm going with him on the spread.
Yeah, I think I kind of feel the same way, Andrew. This is an SMU team that was solid a year ago, looked fine out of the gate. I mean, Jeff pointed out it wasn't the greatest performance we've ever seen, but they were going against East Texas A&M, not exactly a marquee matchup there. I think what's going to be interesting in this one that is hard for us to peg is Baylor's defense and what they've got. Auburn ran roughshod over them. I think over 300 yards on the ground for the Tigers in that one. SMU, that's not really their game. They do most of their damage through the air, so it's going to be interesting. It's not exactly a strength on strength matchup here. I just think SMU's offense is going to be too much for Baylor. I don't think Baylor keeps up with them, and so my sense is that this is a game that's close early, maybe close for three quarters. Mustangs pull away in the end. I think 3.5 is really too low. I'd peg this at more like a 6 or 7 point spread. All right. Now we move to what I think is maybe the game of the week in the ACC. Sounds strange to say, but it's the Duke Blue Devils playing host to the Fighting Illini. They're at Wallace Wade Stadium. Illinois comes into this one as 3.5 point favorites. And Andrew, why don't you kick us off? What's going to happen here?
Oh man, I don't know if it's really just like far too much of a homer pick or the constant you know memory loss on my part that Coach Cut is not still there. But I always have a soft spot for Duke football, particularly in the early going. A 3.5 point spread is, as you mentioned about the last game, basically a pick 'em. Whenever you're this close, of course, it is for the visiting team this time. But man, it's close enough. I would not foresee this being a 10-9 game like our fateful Wake Forest game last week. But I just there's something about like what Manny Diaz is putting together at Duke. What just what we've heard of them so far, the fact that they had a really powerhouse performance, yes, against a nothing team last week, but still, looking good out of the gate, not playing down to their competition when they had the opportunity. That makes me want to give them the not just the covering the spread line there, but the actual money line outright victory. So I don't know that I feel like super great about it, but if I'm gonna last week I put my money where my heart was on FSU that maybe they could pull it all out and get a money line, get a true victory against Alabama. And I'm going to say the same thing. I kind of want Duke to be that good. I want the ACC to be an actual power conference instead of the one that's a power conference in name only. And I think that starts with beating ranked teams in the early going. So it's a heart pick for sure, and I'm sure you guys are going to talk me out of it by the end of your analysis. But what can I say? Although I'm going to throw it to Jeff because I don't know which side he's picking with the pick of money, money, money.
I'm leaving it open to interpretation here, but I'm actually going with with the same pick as you, Andrew, and I have a lot of the same non-quantitative reasons. There's not I don't have a every I don't want to say everything says. I mean, the only thing to me that really says that Illinois is the better team here one weekend is that they're ranked. I mean, these are two teams. Illinois played Western Illinois last week, blew them out. Duke played Elon, blew them out. Both offenses were firing all cylinders. Both defenses played pretty good football. Y- you could argue that Illinois played a better game in a tune-up game, if that's what you would call it, going into week one, than Duke did, just to give them a slight edge. I really, I just feel like this is, what Manny Diaz, as you said, has been building. This is a Duke football team that we have seen them rise to the. I think the impressive thing about what they've been doing is that this is a Duke football team that for all their shortcomings, for not being a top tier ACC school, they definitely seem to rise to the occasion and play tough games when they present themselves. And here's an opportunity, a game against Illinois, top 25 team, top 15 team coming into Wallace Wade Stadium. against a Duke team, not typically a football school. We've joked about that for years on this show, but a team that is fun to watch, and I think they've got a good coach as far as getting them ready for the X's and O's. If they were having to travel up to Illinois, certainly I would give Illinois the edge in this game. Um, I'm not sure, similar to the previous pick, not sure I feel very confident about it, but I think it's one of those that if you're somebody looking to take a value pick, take a flyer on a team, against the odds, against the spread, I think this is one of those opportunities where you look at the intangibles of what the coaching staff does at Duke and say that they certainly have the tools and the conditioning in place to pull off this upset.
It's interesting. I know that, Duke's first week opponent was FCS team and Elon, so not a lot to write home about. But I'm a little bit surprised that Darian Mensah didn't get any love for a possible week one game ball because he ended up with like, a little under 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, looked really, really sharp in that win. This is maybe an opportunity for him to really showcase and show out what he's got here. If Duke is competitive in this one, you may see his stock starts to rise even more.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and, the one thing is, I think David's actually I don't think you clarified, but you're taking the Illinois, money line no, the Illinois spread, I'm taking the Illinois money line, and I think it just comes down to, you know these are 2 coaches, in my opinion, that have had a resurrection in their careers. Yeah, you had a Manny Diaz that had the debacle down in Miami. He's now doing a good job at Duke. Brett Bielema, sorry, who was the head coach up at Wisconsin, left for the Arkansas job, had a terrible job at Arkansas and got fired, and then now has starting the resurrection of Illinois football. I think it's very impressive, and I think it's very similar track of what these programs both are capable of in their respective conferences. End of the day, though, I really do think Illinois got more talent, and I think the quarterback play is going to be the big deciding factor here. And although Duke's quarterback, oh crap, I had this game preview up ready to go. Um,
Well, I
um, uh,
mentioned
thank you,
let's
Minsta.
talk about him.
Yeah, Minsta. I think Altmaier cannot be, Luke Altmaier for Illinois cannot be discredited either. So, I think it's going to be a tight game. I think Illinois squeaks it out just because I think it's got a little more power up front with a running game, and I think that's going to make a difference with the time of possession.
I've got Illinois too. I think it's for me the difference in this one is Illinois' defense. I think they're gonna be doing some things that clearly Duke hasn't seen yet this year. But I think that's the advantage. Defense travels, and so you got the Illini on the road. I think Duke's gonna have a hard time doing what they want to do in this one. I think Illinois wins a kind of a rock fight.
All right. Well, it's time to move on to some quick fire bets. David, why don't you hit us with yours, taking us to the other game in or one of the other games in Carolina this week.
Yeah, I don't love this one, but I think it's a must win for the Tar Heels, and really they need to cover a 21.5 point spread over Charlotte. There's a lot to prove in Chapel Bill, though this game I believe is being played on the road. Maybe that's a good thing for a Tar Heels team that might not be feeling all the love at home. I think the Tar Heels go down to Charlotte, they smack around the 49ers, they win it by more than 3 scores.
All right. Well, staying where we are in Carolina, we have a non-conference matchup between Virginia and NC State. Another one of those tight 3-point spreads between a couple of somewhat evenly matched teams. I know it's a homer pick. I know I'm being kind of bad about it, but I'm going after Virginia on the money line pick over NC State. Jared?
So I had to make a quick audible because I saw my brother pick the game that I initially had picked, but that's okay because I had a backup ready to go. BYU Stanford. Listen, we keep forgetting about this team. Stanford is over on the West Coast in the part of the ACC. I know it's confusing, it's difficult to understand. Hell with conference realignment, and geography, right? What's the point of it? The point is this. BYU, 17.5 point favorite. It's still not enough. Take BYU. They will take care of Stanford by halftime. This is not a good Cardinal football team right now.
Yeah, and actually, Jared, I thought I was going against you. I thought when I read it, I thought you were taking Michigan State on the money line. So I
I
was I was I
I
was
did, but I switched it so we could just at least talk about
oh
another game.
well, I thought we could have like a good old like fight over the last couple of seconds here. But I agree. I agree. BYU minus 17.5 over Stanford is a solid pick as well. Like you said, this is a Stanford team, not great at all. But to what Jared said, I've got Boston College on the money line over Michigan State going into this game. Boston College is the underdog by I think about 3.5 points. That Michigan State offense call it what you want. They only put up a little over 300 yards last week against, I think it was like Western Michigan, Central Michigan, one of those directional Michigan schools. Closer than you would like to see in a tune-up well, not really a tune-up game, but an early game against one of those schools, 23-6. Boston College, on the other hand, fired on all cylinders. Like you could argue that it's against a lesser opponent and who they played in Fordham. But that quarterback duo, I mean, they combined for 500 yards and 5 TDs in that game. I think that's a good indication of what they've got built there. Maybe Fordham isn't doesn't have the defense that maybe teams that they're going to play down the road does, but certainly shows the capabilities that Boston College offense has, and that combined with Michigan State's tougher struggles, lack of offensive production last week in their opening game of the season gives me pause for concern. Once again, similar to the Duke Illinois pick, I think this is one where you've got an opportunity to win some value here with the underdog. So I've got Boston College winning this game outright over the Spartans.
All right. Well, that will do it for the virtual tailgate. You can send your questions or comments to virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com.
And always remember these three rules: never get less than 12 hours sleep.
Never play cards with the guy who has the same first name as the city.
And never get involved with a woman with a tattoo of a dagger on her body.
Stick to that, and everything else is cream cheese.
That's ball game.